because that's what you need to survive any challenging crisis. And right now, you can save $50 on our popular 4-week emergency food kit. Just go to My Patriot Supply.
Good evening. Love and Poetry. Sean Garvey back with you on this great evening with you all. You can check us out live on beatbreakradiofm.com and also on the Podcast FM app. If you are new to Love and Poetry Podcast with myself, yours truly, Sean Garvey and Sharia Thomas, we are the podcast in which we talk about, like the announcer said, all things considered: love, sex, relationships, and we tie it in with a little bit of poetry and spoken word because, of course, me and Sharia are from that particular community, and what a beautiful community it is. And speaking of Sharia Thomas, she is off for the evening, but we'll be back with me, yours truly, for the next Love and Poetry podcast episode. But tonight, it is such a great opportunity to speak to you guys. I've been on a little bit of a hiatus from the podcast over the past couple of weeks, only because I had to attend to some important matters. But I am so glad to be back with you guys on the Love and Poetry podcast, as I am joined by two great men that I had an opportunity and an honor to get to know over quite some time. And I know for the previous couple of episodes of Love and Poetry podcast, it's been all women with Sharia Thomas and her group of lady friends, but it's time now for the man's time. It's time now for what I call the man cave this evening. And tonight, the topic question we are going to ask our listeners, as well as my two great guests, is what it takes to be a good man. I know here in society, in modern day society, we hear so much negative stigma rather, about Black men this, Black men that, from social injustice to even relationships, about no good Black men and Black men getting shot and killed by the police, and just a number of different negative things that we hear about Black men every other day. But I want to take this opportunity on the show today to talk to two great Black men and just ask the question, what it takes to be a good man in today's society. So joining with me right here on the Love and Poetry podcast, I had an opportunity to interview this guy on love and relationships with Joyce Patel a few years ago on WAOK 1380 AM in Atlanta on Father's Day. Father's Day is approaching, of course, and it's just so far from a coincidence that I have him back on the show a few days before Father's Day, but I'm glad to have him on tonight's episode of Love and Poetry. Papi Picasso on the live line. Papi, what's good?
Peace, King. How you doing today?
Hey, I'm doing great, man. I'm doing great. And I am aware that you took some time away from certain parts of Georgia to go outing. I actually did go to the same location that you went to on vacation. And it's so beautiful out there, man.
Yeah, you got to disconnect from the city sometimes. Nature has a very healing factor. Helps you really get back grounded without stopping your growth.
I agree. You got to be one with nature, and you got to be in an area where you take some time to really reflect on yourself and moving forward. So I'm glad that you took that trip.
Oh, man, it was refreshing. Thank you.
Absolutely. And also joining with me, he also was a guest on Love and Relationships on News and Talk 1380 WAOK. I met him through a great acquaintance of mine in radio, and this is actually my first time having him on the Love and Poetry podcast. We have RJ Hodges on the live line. RJ, what's good?
I'm good, man. Thanks for having me. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing good. Life coach, counselor, man of great things, man. And I know you are very excited to get into tonight's topic.
Always, man. Always.
All right. So once again, just to reiterate, tonight's topic is what it takes to be a good man in today's society. To be quite honest and transparent with you guys, it took me a while to realize all the things that you need to have in place to be a man. And it comes from just the survival aspect of things in life. You know, I'm 37 going on 38, and I had to learn how to be a man pretty much through other male role models, to be honest with you. You know, grew up in a single parent household. I was raised by my mom and the television set. And, you know, as years progressed, I started going through the changes, just like all of us guys have. We go through the changes, the hormone changes, the mindset changes, and especially when it comes to relationships. And being at 37, going on 38, I don't think the same way that I thought when I was in my 20s. And I was like, wow, you know, this is really, really real out here. And I got to do whatever I can to survive, whether I'm in a relationship or if I'm not in a relationship, you know, being a single guy that I am. So I want to address the question to you, Papi Picasso, because you are a father and you are in a relationship. So talk to us. What did it take for you to actually practice that authenticity of being a man? What did it take for you?
A couple things. I don't ever want to anchor being a good man with necessarily being in a relationship. That's just one. I think you could be a good man absent of a relationship. I think being a good man in general is about recognizing the desire to refine and be in a constant state of refinement. So you have to be, in order to be a good leader, you got to be a good follower. In order for me to be a good father, I have to actually listen to my children and reflect on my time as a child, right? But to answer your question, as it pertains directly to the relationship, I went through different stages. I was married before, got divorced, and at the time when I got married and I committed to her, I thought that I was a good man. But there was still a lot of healing that needed to be done inside me. I needed to not just evolve as a person, but evolve in a mental health aspect as well. And now with my current relationship, which I hope to get married and I'm working on that, my goal is to work on myself tend to myself as much as I tend to her. Because a lot of times you could lose yourself in a relationship on your honey-do list and just making sure that person's happy. However, it's as important to make sure that you're sharpening your sword and enlightening yourself. You're reading your books, you're attending therapy. And, you know, for me, that's how I knew I was at the point in my life where I'm ready to take that next step again.
And I'm so glad that you mentioned therapy, because I am currently going through therapy myself and learning a lot about who I am as a man. So I'm glad that you said that. And I think therapy plays a big part in our quest to knowing who we are as a man. And I want to transition over to you, RJ, and ask you the same question that I just asked Papi Picasso. On your journey of being a man, what did it take for you to get to that place in your life where you too also had to practice the authenticity of being a man?
You know, for me, it was getting to a point to where I could define what a man is for myself. Kind of just like you, I grew up in a single parent household. There were always men around, you know, whether that was, you know, men in the neighborhood, uncles, you know, people from around the way, whatever the case may be. And at first I thought being a man was mimicking them. You know what I mean? Because there are all of these myths about a man should be this and a man should be that and a man should be this. You know, a man should be tough. So I tried the tough guy role. You know what I mean? A man should be this. But it wasn't until I got to the point that I was comfortable enough with me to say that I'm going to define who I am as a person. If that matches what you think is a good man, great. If it doesn't, I'm okay with that. So I didn't become a man in my eyes until I was okay with my own identity. You know what I mean? I wasn't trying to necessarily be, this type of guy, and I wasn't necessarily, if I can't fix a transmission, that don't mean I ain't a real man, or all of these myths that we put out there that a real man should be blank. And I didn't become a man until I was able to comfortably question those things and say, well, I don't fit in that box, but I don't feel less of a man than this person that does. And it wasn't until then that I truly believed that I entered, my level of manhood.
Mm-hmm. You said myths, another key word outside of therapy, myth. Where do you think those myths came from? Where do you think they originated from? Because I also grew up hearing the same thing too about, oh, you're not supposed to cry. You're supposed to be manly all the time.
Right.
You can't do the same things that a girl or a lady or a woman can do, because women are emotional. And we hear that a lot growing up. Women are more emotional than guys. But where do those myths come from, in your opinion, or from your observation?
I think there's societal norms. You know what I mean? I mean, we have societal norms, and a societal norm to me is just something that's become so common that everybody has agreed with it. Doesn't mean it's real, doesn't mean it's true, doesn't mean it's factual. It just means that everybody has agreed with it. We could start a societal norm right now. It doesn't matter what it is. If we can make it popular enough for people to take hold to it and believe in it, after generations, it becomes the gospel. You know what I mean? So I think a lot of those things have just over time, they've become the gospel of a man should be whatever you want to fill in those blanks with. Like you said, can't cry, can't do this, don't do that. But in my time of being a personal development coach and sitting down with a lot of men, what I've learned is that a lot of men are inwardly suffering because there's no way in hell you check off all of these boxes that a quote unquote a real man supposed to be. And if you never turn inward to say it's okay if I'm not this or I'm not that, you're gonna be forever having this identity crisis about what you lack from that list of quote unquote real manhood. But I think it's just societal norms. It crosses over from manhood to marriage to relationships. We all have these things that have been put out there to say you're supposed to do this. And I think we're living in a time where people are pushing the envelope on all of that. So
I respect what RJ's saying a lot, in that when we talk about societal norms and these traditional values, a lot of times we also forget that the men that were the archetype prior to us gave us a tool set that is no longer applicable. The entire tool set isn't. Yeah, maybe a hammer is, maybe certain parts of it, but the days of blue collar worker going out, bringing home the bacon, women being seen and not heard, those days are way over. Mm-hmm. So understanding what parts you need to keep and preserve and what parts we need to do away with is key in understanding that manhood is no longer monolithic, the same way femininity isn't. We are allowed to be whole human beings. We're allowed to have things that you would think are contrary, such as fixing a transmission, being tough, and crying. We're allowed to be all of those things.
Yeah. Very true. Very true. And I agree with you 100% because, like you said, you got to think logically, something that worked perfectly 45 years ago, why would we think it would work perfectly 45 years later? You know what I mean? Like in any other thing, any other topic that we can think of right now, something that's 45 years old would be outdated today, whether it's a car, whether it's a phone, all of those things are outdated. But the way we govern our lives, a lot of times, we don't change that. It's the same as it was 40, 50 years ago.
But that's it's only as it pertains to masculinity and manhood. I host a fatherhood workshop, and the shirts that they get upon graduation states masculinity is not a dirty word. See, the women's suffrage movement never stopped, whereas civil rights seemed to take to slow down after obviously all the assassinations. Women's rights never stopped. They've been in a constant state of defining themselves and asserting themselves. Masculinity and manhood has not. We just kept being there quiet and supportive until the point where our own existence started being questioned, and conversations like this are so necessary.
Yeah. I agree.
Man, you hit it, Papi and RJ. I want to just take a moment to go back to the earlier days. You know, even as a kid, I grew up watching. Let's take it to sitcoms for a moment. I grew up watching the Family Household on television shows like The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air and Martin and Family Matters. Well, not so much Martin, but Family Matters, and the list goes on. Even Good Times. But also before then, you had the black and white TV shows. You had shows like the Dick Van Dyke Show and My Three Sons and the Donna Reed Show. You know I'm telling my age when I given those shows there, but I grew up watching the black and white shows just as much as I started watching the shows that came on later. That was the thing in my mind as a man, that I gotta have this in order to match up to what being a man is. I gotta have a household, I gotta have a wife, I gotta have a kid or children, and be the breadwinner and be the provider, and be the person that comes home and asks my wife, hey honey, I'm home, what's for dinner? Right. And so now fast forward, the game has really changed for a lot of men, and you know, people will look at you sideways like, okay, you a single guy, you don't have no kids, you're not married, what's wrong with you?
Yeah, what's wrong with you, right?
Yeah, right. You know, that kind of ties into the whole negative stigma, you know, and also double standard as well, because it's okay for a woman to be single without kids or without a family, but something is wrong with that man if he don't have no kids or he doesn't have a ring on his finger. Like, what's wrong with you? You know, so RJ, like, what are your take on that? Have you ever been approached by someone or had someone give you the side eye at one point in time when you didn't have those things?
Absolutely. You know what I mean? And I want to make sure I clarify. I'm not saying that if that's what you view manhood as, or that's what you feel like you need to be doing, I'm not saying that that's wrong. What I'm saying is where I feel we get in trouble in society is we live in a one size fits all type of deal, which means we say, if this person doesn't look like this person, then it must not be right. So that goes back to what you're saying. A man is not defined as a good man because he has a wife and a kid at home. He's not defined as a bad man because he has a wife and a kid at home. We have to be able to define that for ourselves. But yeah, I've heard it all. I've heard it all. You're such and such age, you're not married, and people start to look like, what's going on? You know what I mean? And the funny part is the people that ask you that they married, they ain't happy. So it's like, why you asking me this question? You know what I'm saying? You just got to fight with your wife and your girlfriend on the phone. You know what I mean? So why? But let me not go there. But at the same time, I think it's just getting us to the point in society where we can accept difference. People are afraid of things that go against what we've been told is supposed to be. And that scares people, whether they want to admit it or not. It really does. If you come out with something that is off the beaten path from the last 15 people that somebody talked to, most people are like, oh my God, I don't know what to do with that. And today I think we're learning that we don't have to be the same to reach the same goal. You still be a man if you're not married. You can still be a man if you don't believe in marriage. Like, you define that, not society or anybody else.
Now, if you don't mind, I like to build on that. When we talk about, I have a fatherhood book called A Son with No Father is a Book with No Author. And in it, there's a chapter specifically on manhood. And it speaks directly what Audrey was talking about, defining your own manhood and what that looks like. What are the virtues associated with manhood? And those virtues can exist whether you are in a relationship or not. Whether you want to be the change that you want to see in the world, it doesn't have to revolve around a domestic situation. And when we talk about all the different ways that masculinity and manhood could look, I'll be the one to say, I know dudes that are gay that are more of a man than dudes I grew up with that are straight, but they don't take care of their kids nor their responsibilities. So let's understand that it's always about the virtues and principles that you live your life by. And one of the key things that I tell every kid that attends my Kingdom Son workshop, the healing workshop with fathers and sons, is once you understand the difference between responsibility and accountability, you could then start your journey for manhood. What do I mean by that? Everybody knows that you may not be responsible for the disposition to which you were born, but you will be accountable for the life that you lead. So the moment you are able to assume accountability, you are then able to excel, provided the proper reason to push yourself further instead of finding excuses to be less than.
Man,
I agree.
preach. Preach.
I do poetry, B.
Yeah. Or teach, rather. Teach. Yes, sir. I got to go to the social media, and I know Sharia is going to tap my hand for this when she comes back. But I got to go to the social media real quick and comment on some of the people that are coming in on tonight's topic. And Miss K on IG at Sean Garvey ATL says, experience makes you a better man. I'm going to repeat that one more time. Experience makes you a better man. This is coming from a woman, gentlemen. Wow. Well, what do you think about that, Papi? Experience makes you a better man. Can experience?
I'm like, I agree with that wholeheartedly. And the reason why is because they say like a wise man learns from others' mistakes and fools by their own. So you can have knowledge and wisdom, but without the experience, you'll never get to the understanding. I could understand that I could have it like, theoretically this will work and this is what I'm supposed to do. But until I go through the experience, I'm not making an educated decision. So I'm, being a native New Yorker and understanding 5%, I always lean on the understanding of something to complete my cipher.
Okay.
I mean, I can agree with that. I would love for her to expound on what she's, what the context is of experience can make you a better man, because I think the right experiences, you properly learning from those experiences, applying it and becoming better could make you a better man. But just general experience, I had some experience that did not make me a better man. You know what I mean? And I know people that have had experiences that they didn't really take certain things from, and it did make them better. So, again, it goes back to my thing that I'll talk about all the time. I don't know if anything general works for all. And I think, again, that's how we get in trouble in society, is because we want to take one thing and we want to say experience makes you a man, or, men do this, or if a man does that, that means that. I don't know if it's a person in the world that's qualified enough to say what all people need or what all people do. You know what I mean? So my thing is more so to men, figure out your own journey. You can get guidelines from other men. You can look at some of the societal norms and you can build a right character. But ultimately, I think you got to walk your own journey and define what it is you want to be and who you want to be, and kind of go on that road. And if it doesn't fit what everybody else said it should be, then so be it.
Yeah. Papi, did you want to add something
No,
else?
I'm curious. Like, I heard his response, and of course, there's no one size fit all solution for anything. But when I hear the word experience, I just think about, maybe taking a free throw shot.
Mm-hmm.
You got to take your 10,000 to get good, right? You got to put in your due diligence for anything. So a loss is really a lesson. So experiences, maybe you may have failed at a relationship, but I know my failure in my first marriage is going to sure as hell make me a better one at my second. And it was through that experience I learned it. Now, like you said, it's not a one size fits all. So somebody might knock it out the park on their first marriage. Shout out to them. But they still had some level of experience to even get to that first marriage. You feel me? Some baseline for a relationship.
And I think the proper thing to say is, like, for some people, for some men, the experience makes them a better man, but we can't put that for every man, because like you said, there's men in 5 relationships, you know what I'm saying? And they didn't learn from any of the experiences.
How many relationships you gonna have, goddammit?
Right, you know what I'm saying? So you can't say that, hey, just keep experiencing, man. It's gonna make you a better man.
It depends on the person that extracts the lesson from the experience. There you go. That's the key part.
It's like what I always say about a success principle. Me and you can read the same book, the same exact quote unquote success book. what it does for me may do something totally different for you. And it's not the book, it's the person or the spirit that it comes into contact with. So a lot of the stuff that we're talking about is based upon this individual. What does this individual do with the experience? What does an individual do with the things that, you know, you're teaching them? Because, man, you got, I know people personally that grew up with fathers that were good men, quote unquote, and still turned out to be whatever, you know what I mean? Did whatever they want to do. So it's not always this just, if you do this, this equals this, you know? So I think we have to,
for sure,
we have to fight to break the myth.
The variable is the human, the character of that person.
Exactly, I agree.
Yeah, and that's why we call certain moments teachable moments, because you all pretty much said the same thing, but just in different contexts, because we all have went through teachable moments in our lives as young men growing up into the men that we are, learning from our mistakes and learning from our failures. And I think we sometimes get pressured in to the fact that we got to be perfect. We got to be perfect all the time, or if not all the time, most of the time. And that we have to be a certain type of human being to show people or to show the masses that, oh, we can't do this, we can't cry, or we can't say something wrong and be apologetic about it the next day. Like I sometimes feel pressured every day when I wake up to be perfect all the time, or if I'm not perfect, or if I say the wrong thing, I'm going to get canceled, especially in this cancel culture society that we in, that I'm sorry, I just cannot stand it. I cannot stand it, but that's a different topic. But I do want to touch on really quick before we get up out of here. I do want to touch on, like Papi said, relationships. When a woman calls you or texts you and she says, and I know us men, we've been there before. When she texts you and calls you, say, hey, we need to talk. And when I get those messages, that lets me know that lets me know that we're about to have the butt conversation. And to expound on the butt conversation, that means that there's going to be a but somewhere in that sentence. A woman will first say, you are a good man, but, or you are a great man, but. Do you feel like it's not enough? Like you got to add more layers to being a good man, to being a great man. You did everything that you could to make her happy or to make the relationship work, but it's not enough. Do you feel at times pressure, or was there a point in time where you felt pressured that being a good man just isn't enough? Let's start with you, RJ.
Absolutely. You know, I was in a long-term relationship, and what I learned, I think what she learned and what I learned was that I'm a human. But a lot of women, or this particular woman, I won't put it on everybody, they've also been told what a quote unquote good man should be, right? So they've been told those same blanket statements. So a lot of times you don't see a person till you're really with them anyway. So once you're really with that person and you can see the flaws and you can see that, yeah, I'm a man, but I'm really just a human being. I didn't come here with the cheat code just like you did, unfortunately. You know what I mean? Like, I'm figuring this thing out just because I was born a man. Like, they ain't slipped me a little piece of paper at birth and say, do this, do this, do this, everything gonna work out perfectly. Like, that didn't happen. Like, I'm fumbling through this life thing just like everybody else. And I think sometimes, you know, if you're in that situation when a woman says, you know, you're good, but this, you feel like, man, how do I get a chance to be human? Because whatever it is that I messed up on, I didn't do it on purpose. I didn't know any better at the time. You know what I mean? So sometimes I felt like over the years that because of what a man is supposed to represent, there's not a lot of leeway for error, which is, that can be a lot of pressure at times.
All right, Papi, let's say you.
Well, one, that's very true. I believe, especially women, and I'm just gonna be frank, they've gotten to I see a lot of women have gotten to the point they like to pick and choose which traditions still hold true today. So typically anything that benefits them, they want to hold, and anything that challenges them, we got to get away with, right? So what I've learned as far as me being a 40-year-old man is I live my life according to a set of principles. And those principles do not waver for anybody because I raise my children according to these principles. I raise my godchildren. I am an example as a public figure according to these principles. So since I don't take advantage of every opportunity that comes my way, it prevents certain growth. If you see that and think and look at it as a liability to what you have going on, that means you don't recognize the true value that I bring. And if you don't recognize the true value I bring, you don't have to stay here. So anybody that I choose to do either business with or be in a relationship with must recognize that in itself.
So once again, we always talk about this in episodes of Love and Poetry. It all boils down to communication. This is what I bring to the table. This is who I am as a man. And you can hang with it or go your separate ways, or we can go our separate ways, but still keep it amicable at the end of the day. So it all boils down to communication. Let's do a final thought, gentlemen, on this particular topic as we get ready to wind down, because I definitely want to take it back to Papi Picasso for our poetry session of Love and Poetry. But last remarks, guys, like any advice to a young man out there? He could be like in his teens and still trying to explore what manhood is all about, or a guy that may be like in his 20s and still figuring things out. Papi Picasso, what is your advice to a young guy who's trying to figure things out as he approaches manhood?
Well, a young man, I would say, don't make any major life decisions until you're 30. I think when you're 30, that's when everything in your body that's kind of volatile starts to simmer down and you can see a little bit clearer. Invest early, things that you hope to reap reward in later on. And honestly, be a thermostat, not a thermometer, meaning control your environment, don't become a product of it. And if you're able to do that, you're demonstrating leadership, and your masculinity and your manhood will show its prowess there.
All right, good words to live by. And RJ Hodges, what is your advice to a young guy as he approaches manhood or figuring things out as a man?
I got to put my coach hat on. To any young man, I would say do the personal development work. There's nothing wrong with a man going to therapy. There's nothing wrong with a man going to counseling. There's nothing wrong with a man having a personal development coach. The reason I say that is because I think the work of turning inward is questioning your program. What have you been told? What do you think? How do you perceive? How do you look at things? How do you believe? And here's the biggest question. Are those things serving you well today for where it is that you desire to go? And a lot of times you don't figure that out until you talk to somebody and you start doing that internal work and you figure out who you are. And, from my neighborhood, they say, well, I'm supposed to be like that, but that don't feel right to me. You got to question all of these things because you get the opportunity to construct who you are as an adult. So to any young man, do the personal development work on yourself. Just don't follow this blueprint if it doesn't feel right for you. So,
yeah.
Amen to that. Amen to that.
Amen. Yeah, that's a hand clap right there. From all of us guys, that's a hand clap. And just know, to any young brother out there, just know that the journey just doesn't stop. And you got to keep on growing. You got to keep on developing. But I would say get you a mentor. Get you an older mentor. And take down as much advice and information as possible from elders that have been on this planet longer than you have. They have the knowledge, they have the information for you to get on the right path, especially if it makes sense. So get you a mentor, and also watch the people that you surround yourself with. Be around like-minded people, like-minded brothers that are looking to go out and do bigger and better things. If your pack or your crew is not going into the direction that you are going in, because you may need to reevaluate that and find yourself around a good support system of guys that are looking to go outside the box and be productive citizens in this nation, you know? So that's how we're gonna end up having a strong nation, guys. So that's my 2 cents on that. But hey, as you can see, the background of my studio is dim. So that means it's time now for the spoken word corner right here on Love and Poetry. And Papi Picasso, a poet, a spoken word, you got something for us this evening, sir?
I certainly do, and it's definitely on topic. I just would like to know what FCC regulations are set right now. There's nothing gratuitous. It won't be gratuitous, but there may be a little bit littered here and there.
I'll put it to you. I'll put it to you. Disclaimer: some of what you're going to hear on tonight is only suitable for mature audiences only. So parental discretion and listener discretion and viewer discretion is advised.
Okay. So as I said, as a native New Yorker, when I say "ayo," typically my audience says "all right." So if y'all brothers would indulge me.
Definitely.
Ayo.
All right.
I am a man. But I want you to understand I'm talking about a man's man. I am a mother's boy, a father's pride, a woman's goddamn. A daughter's template. My son's architect. I am God's hands. I'm labor intensive, just not in that unit. I'm taking for granted whenever I do shit. I've taken the damage you hear in today's music, presented as if I'm always supposed to be a buffoon, incapable and foolish. I am past mistakes, lessons acquired, accountable for myself, absent of excuses. I am a man that's claiming his dignity at the risk of sounding hubris, because if I don't do it, then our Sermon on the Mount may as well be muted. Shh. I've been mistaken for examples on reality TV in Atlanta. But as I just said, I'm a man, and I've never seen that reality in me. I'm of the tribe of injustice. My absence speaks so much louder than my presence. This is why I do not shine when I'm with my children outside in public. If anything, I try to shine as a beacon above this 2021 age that places so much value in complaint. I am a man that will no longer mask his masculinity because I might be conveyed as vain. But let us not get me twisted. My power requires no praise. I am a man, the pillar of the pack, the leader of the pack, the cornerstone of our family that withstands every crack. I am a man that will happily take a bullet for your child. Cornerstones of manhood are empathy and humanity. I am a man that nods his head in understanding. Oh, I love hard. I hate apathy. I build self-esteem while I raise a beautiful family. I am a man that bears his responsibilities on his shoulders until they strangle his neck. I am a man that has paid all of his debts, and I expect a return on my investment whenever I pay you proper respect. Oh, I am Sir. I am not your nigga. I'm not your dude. I'm not your stereotype, and I'm certainly not your lie. I am truth. I am virtue. I am principle. I am important. I said I am direction. I am destined. I am that man that proudly rubbed her belly while pregnant, stood back and told the world, oh, I did that shit. I am not extinct. Nah, you can see I'm distinguished. I am one of many, the voice for our quiet leadership. I am a man that will not be told that his definition is meaningless by any bitter woman fed up with who she dealt with previous. I'm sorry, ladies. I'm not your mistake. I am unapologetic for bad decisions you made. You see, he and I, we are not the same. I am dominant. I am prominent. I am confident. I am not that misogynist that looks at your body as his conquest. I am a man with a daughter and a conscience. Therefore, my character will always be more important than my accomplishments. I am a man that's important. I'm not famous. I'm brazen, not jaded. I'm broader than the pictures they all painted. You see, I make sense. I manifest potential in which every man could. You're not just listening to a conversation amongst men. This shit right here, it's the redefinition of manhood. Thank you.
So,
Love it. Love it. Grand Rising. I love it. Papi Picasso, right here on Love and Poetry, the home of not only great conversation, great talk, but great poets expressing the truth. Wow.
I would like to definitely, thank you,
Yes,
thank
sir.
you. So I would definitely like to give a big up to Undugu Kickbacks. They are an organization out in Atlanta that lead conversations about manhood and masculinity. They have members as young as 18 to as old as 80, brothers that are homeless to brothers that are politicians. Every dynamic you can imagine is found within this group, and it's such healthy dialogue. And they host weekly kickbacks where you could just chime in and listen if you don't want to share yet. So I want to definitely big them up. And I will also like to say, anybody that's looking to represent fatherhood coming up on Father's Day, represent manhood coming up on Father's Day, my book, A Son with No Father, is a book with no author, is available on my website at www.papipicassopoetry.com. Thank you very much for the platform, Sean.
Absolutely. And where can people follow you, Papi Picasso?
Oh, on Instagram, it's I am Papi Picasso, P-A-P-I, because I'm Puerto Rican, not P-O-P-P-Y. I don't do drugs. So at I am Papi Picasso, on Facebook, Papi Picasso Poetry.
Okay. Papi Picasso, thank you so much. And RJ Hodges, I want to say thank you. It is an honor to reconnect with you, brother, once again on Love and Poetry Podcast. And go ahead, let the people know what you got. Yes, sir. Man. I don't know how to top that one. I mean, I'm a poet as well too, but I don't know how to top that one.
Definitely, man. But no, thank you, man. I appreciate that. You can find me. I'll give you I'll give everybody my link tree. Is I'm looking at it. It's link linktr.ee/RJ Hodges. So linktr.ee/RJ Hodges. And you can find everything on there from online courses that I have to all of my social media as well.
Okay. All right. And of course, as always, ladies and gentlemen, you can follow me on Facebook at Sean Garvey, Twitter, Instagram at Sean Garvey ATL. And speaking of poetry, my new online material, A Poet Found Dead, is still available online on WordPress. Sean Garvey, yes, sir. Yes, sir. It's actually my first project in a while. So that is what's up. SeanGarveyOnline.wordpress.com, soon to be SeanGarveyOnline.com. But in the meantime, between time, you can go to WordPress, type in SeanGarveyOnline.wordpress.com to check out A Poet Found Dead. I hope you enjoy it. And I hope you enjoyed the conversation as well. So tune in again to another great episode of Love and Poetry Podcast with your hosts, Sharia Thomas and Sean Garvey. And once again, ladies and gentlemen, you can download the Podcast FM app to listen to the entire show live and on demand, as well as on BeatBreakRadioFM.com. We're everywhere, baby. Spotify, iHeart, Google Podcasts, and Roku TV. You just got to download those apps to watch us on TV as well as on YouTube. We're everywhere in cyberspace, baby. Just download the app, Reach One Network, BeatBreak 87 FM. And you will check out this great show and more. So until the next time, we will talk to you soon. Take care. Peace.